it's a terrible compass, but it is a good classroom.
Difficult to be honest because you don't want to be doubtful.
There might be an expression that people would look down on.
Well, welcome back to the podcast. Welcome to the party. I am happy to be back with you guys this week.
We're here. Here we go.
We guys had a long weekend.
Mother's Day weekend.
It was Mother's Day weekend.
Yeah.
How'd you guys celebrate? What'd you guys do? Not you celebrating yourselves, but how did you celebrate others well this weekend?
Well, I do bear the responsibility for my wife becoming a mother, so I'm just want to get my credit where credit is due.
I was saying happy almost Father's Day to some people in the lobby yesterday because I didn't know what else to tell people besides good morning. So, happy almost Father's Day.
Yeah. No, we did like a really nerd thing. We went down to PopCon in Indianapolis. And so just like a pop culture convention, all the stuff. We had a friend that was debuting a short film down there. And so we went and watched his short film at PopCon. Got to drive BattleBots, which were kind of cool. They're like these little BattleBots. So that was awesome.
Come on.
That's cool.
Yeah, the kids all got Kristen presents, and then all wrote her own cards, which in our household, it's like, hey, it's a 5-sentence minimum. You know, you have to put some thoughts into the card. Then we went out to a restaurant that she had chosen. Then my wife is awesome, so she picks things that I like and enjoy. I don't think she's aiming for that target, but it's just nice to have someone with shared hobbies. So she chose a bonfire and playing catch in the yard last night. So we had baseball mitts out playing catch, and then we watched the Timberwolves game. And so that was a great Mother's Day, and yeah, it was awesome.
I love it.
We were, as we were driving, we would see like families out doing things, and my wife was like, the mom really didn't want to do that. Like there was we pulled up here to the church, and there's like a family, like the whole family playing disc golf together, and Gibbs like, mom really didn't want to be doing that. That's not her choice of.
But I feel like we drove by PopCon, I would be like, she really didn't want to be doing that.
Hey, it was her idea. It was her idea.
Yeah.
You never know.
There's
Everyone's
a wide
so different.
variety of women, and I was surprised that that's what she had picked last night. Like, I just want to hang out in the backyard, do a bonfire.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, perfect. And
That's
then
cool.
when she threw the Timberwolves game in there, I'm like, glory.
Well, and it helps that they won.
It does. Now, Wemby getting ejected definitely helped us out.
Right.
But the fact that it was still a close game with him out is scary.
Yeah.
Now, and for the person who does watch basketball, Wemby is in his second year. He's becoming the most dominant player in the
7'6".
NBA.
Oh.
Yeah, I think one game he had like 15 or so blocks, you know, and like 39 points. He's 7'6", but he shoots the ball. He handles the ball. He's not your typical just big guy. Yeah. And he's only in year 2. Mm-hmm. So you look at all these other young superstars and the guys who have the potential to be the face of the NBA, and you're realizing you are just cursed to play at the same time as Victor Wembanyama.
Right.
The same way other guys were, you know, kind of cursed to play at the same time as Jordan.
Right.
You know, Charles Barkley, you were amazing. You just played at the time Jordan played, and that seems to be the case. So there definitely is a kind of a public service announcement, I think, being made to the entire league, like, hey, this kid's coming. But last night he elbowed Naz Reid from the Wolves, and it was
blatant.
It was pretty blatant.
Yeah.
And he's not a dirty player. I've not seen him do anything like that. But in the moment, he definitely, his emotions got the best of him. And if you look historically, Draymond Green had a situation like that. Ron Artest had a situation like that. Well, they were suspended for multiple games. Mm-hmm. Mm. So as much as I'm a T-Wolves fan and I want them to win, I would be so bummed if he gets suspended for multiple games. Right. But if the NBA is going to be consistent, he's probably going to get a suspension. Yeah. So that's unfortunate, but
it was kind of the premeditated look, because there was actually before he swung his elbow, he kind of paused and looked where he was where it was going.
Yeah. And Naz Reid, I believe he's maybe 6'10". He's a big guy, and that elbow dropped him like TKO style.
Well, what's so interesting about Wemby is like you will see him standing next to his teammates, and he makes 6'10" guys look short, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
Like he's standing next to NBA players who, if they walked into our building right now, would dwarf us, and he makes them look short. It's weird.
Yeah, he's an alien for sure, and I steal that from so many commentators.
Yes,
who are
right.
like, this guy's otherworldly, but
Yeah. Aubrey, you'd be like up to his waist,
I
like
literally
his legs are as tall
so
as you.
short.
Wolves got the win. Now on the other side of the deal, it was a rough night for us Pacer fans because last night was the lottery for the draft, and so if you're a diehard Pacer fan, you are kind of mourning what happened last night in the draft. So last year, to somewhat maybe try to salvage the season, the Pacers decided to trade their first-round draft pick for a center from the Clippers named Zubac, an average center.
yeah.
But we needed someone. Miles Turner had left. We needed someone in there. And he's a decent player. But with that, what they agreed on is they protected the first 4 picks, meaning that their idea was, hey, we're going to have a terrible season. They were, I think, 3rd in the NBA, and so that's kind of a deal. And fans felt that. The third worst.
Third worst.
Sorry,
Oh, okay. Third worst team.
team.
Yeah. I was like third. I was like, I don't
They
think
might
they
not
had
have
that
my
good of a
odds.
season.
Nope, third
Yeah.
worst team
Yeah.
in the NBA. And so they tank, and they put themselves in a greater position of odds
Yes.
to land one of those first 4 picks. If the lottery draft falls outside of those 4 picks, it goes to the Clippers.
Yeah.
And they got the number 5 pick. So they took this risk. It didn't play out well. And basically they lost their first round pick, in what is definitely probably the best draft class in a long time. So we definitely missed out on an opportunity. However, great leadership moment because the front office just came out and owned it.
Yeah.
And we're just like, hey, we just want to apologize to the fans. We took a risk.
Yeah.
And we take ownership of that. We apologize to our fans and thank you for enduring a tough losing season. And just know we're a resilient ball club, and Pacers will be competing in the future. And obviously, we'll get Halliburton back and we'll be better. But if you're a diehard Pacer fan, last night was a bit depressing.
Yeah. You didn't want to get into like the 76ers process, where it's just like year over year over year of like, okay, we're gonna do better. We're gonna have bad season this year, but next year we're gonna get some guys. We're gonna build, and then you just do that for 7 years, and nothing really happens.
And it's tough when you're a small market because it's not as if Indianapolis can rival New York, Miami, LA, where a lot of these superstars, they want to go and be in these markets that come with additional opportunities.
Right.
And so for the Pacers, you really have to build your ball club, through the system, through the draft. And I think they actually do a bang-up job. I would say that I think our organization in terms of the Pacers is in the top 5 in the league. I think they're just awesome. I love Rick Carlisle and all of them. So,
If the Wolves and Pacers are playing against each other, who are you cheering for?
Whoa, gotcha. Oh man, I'm gonna get canceled after this.
that one is tough. Yeah, I would be torn there for sure. I'd probably lean actually towards the Pacers, just because so much of what makes sports enjoyable is getting to experience it with other fans.
Oh.
And I just think the sports culture in Indiana is incredible. So if, for example, when the Pacers made the finals, how that felt and how the community rallied around them, I found myself thinking it wouldn't have felt like this in Minneapolis. There's such an enthusiasm out here, and I'd probably maybe jump on the bandwagon there, but it would be tough. Anthony Edwards is probably my favorite player in the NBA. So,
Man, it's good times. I mean, the Knicks just embarrassed the 76ers.
oh my goodness, they look tough.
That was like crazy. 11 3-pointers in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Like super, super wild. And then I think they went on to win by like 30 points, which I don't know.
Dominating them.
Yeah. It was, I mean, I love seeing the Knicks play that well. But it feels like there's been a couple of those in this finals where it's just like, blowout wins.
Yeah.
Like 30, 40 points, which that's not really fun in the finals.
No, it becomes ugly. And
Like the Rockets were like, it was those terrible series. The Rockets never really, presented much of a challenge.
yeah.
And what really stood out to me was the first game in Houston, the stands were empty. Like nobody was coming to it.
Crazy.
I'm like, it's the finals. It's the
finals.
playoffs.
Yeah.
Like how can you not fill your stadium during the playoffs if you're in it? Like, so that's sad.
It is. And I would say for the Sixers, I mean, they just have way too talented of a roster to not compete. Something needs to change there. But
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
other than that, I mean, it was a good basketball weekend, but
Yeah.
even better because it was a mom's weekend and
Yeah.
church was awesome. And I loved, one of my favorite things about this weekend was getting to see all the baptisms from all the locations
Yeah.
Yeah,
represented.
so fun.
And that was something that we've been discussing, and shout out to Steve and his team for making that happen. But what that just felt like in the room of getting to see, Flora, Noblesville, Benford,
Yeah.
you're seeing the different campuses represented, and to see the names.
Yes.
I thought that was such a great touch, and I'm excited that we're going to be implementing that moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool, especially with the names, because it really is like, it emphasizes that, I mean, you are becoming a part of the family.
Yeah.
And so we know your name. Like we've seen your face, we know your name, and we're rooting for you. And I think a lot of times, we've had many baptisms over many, many years at the church, and you just don't ever get to see like all these people, and you're just like, oh my goodness, like the church is moving forward. Like people are giving their lives to Christ, they're committing, and they're actually having that physical representation of that commitment that they're making.
Yeah.
And it's cool to see.
And whenever a husband gets baptized and then turns around and like baptizes his wife and then
then his
baptizes his kids,
Yeah.
I'm like, game over.
Yeah.
Like give that family the trophy.
Yeah.
That is just, and I'm just
weeping
whenever that happens. So amazing. Shout out to everyone who was baptized. And again, if you've not made that decision, you definitely should. It is such a formidable and momentous moment in your faith, and it tethers you to the community of like, hey, me too. I stepped out publicly, standing with Christ. So
Stop dating him, marry him.
yeah.
I mean, I think we have people like that they've been dating the church, dating Jesus in a way, but they haven't made the commitment. Like, make the commitment, because it will not only make your life better, but it will, help even your family and things like that. I think you see the ripple effect of one person making a decision for Christ, going throughout their families. And man, it's just cool when you see that.
And there's a couple factors there. One, you have the individual who was baptized as an infant. And so many people, even in this region of the country, come out of maybe a more liturgical, maybe Catholic background where they were baptized as an infant. And there's this assumption that I can't be baptized because, one, I already was baptized. But if I choose to do so now in my own faith, it is a slap in the face to mom and dad. And it is a discrediting of that first moment that I had. And I would say, one, know that in Scripture, there is only believer baptisms. They're not baby baptisms the way we see practice. It is people placing their faith, going public, and it is a believer being baptized. And so when you think of infancy, baptisms taking place, that decision is not being made by the child. That decision is being made by the parent. Now, to not completely dismiss the sacredness of some of those things and why people value them, though I would say be careful you don't become superstitious with those things, is if you were blessed to be raised in a God-fearing home, that at a very early point in your life, your parents chose to set into motion God's work in your life anchored in their faith. Well, one of the most honoring things you can do is to arrive at a place where you take ownership of your faith. And so for the person who thinks, I don't want to disrespect my parents, I think it's the opposite. I think to go public in your faith and to be baptized later on down the road is to say, hey, mom and dad, you set something into motion in my life, and I am now standing publicly owning it. So I definitely don't think there's this massive contradiction there. I don't think people should overdo the agonizing of like, I don't know, is this disrespectful or whatever. The other thing would be is a lot of people just for whatever reason got saved and weren't baptized right away. Sometimes it's because the church they were at actually wasn't prioritizing baptism. Maybe, a lot of churches will only do baptisms like once or twice a year. Well, if you miss the once, one time they did it, well, then you're kind of in this cycle where it gets prolonged. And the longer you get away from your decision salvation moment and your baptism moment, I've noticed people almost attach a shame to it. And they feel embarrassed, like, everyone around here knows I'm a Christian. If I get baptized now, they're going to know I've been delaying my obedience. And I would just encourage the person, like, hey, when you get up there and no one's thinking that. But I bump into that pastorally where someone's like, I'm embarrassed. And it's like, well, this would be a great opportunity for you just to get over that. And when you come up out of the waters of baptism, what you're not going to hear is people being like, well, about time. You're going to hear people celebrating, cheering, and just honoring the moment that you're having with the Lord. So get baptized. If you are a Christian, get baptized. If you're not a Christian, it would be awkward and meaningless, but for sure.
And we do baby dedication. It's not a baptism. It's not there to save them. A lot of times we'll say it's a parent dedication, and a lot of like you're committing to raising your kid in a godly way, and I think that family commitment is really what we would want for people. It's like we don't want you to do it alone. Your family is going to be the closest people to you that are going to help you live out a life of faith. Obviously, you have the church, but your family's kind of your first line of defense there. And so, parents making that commitment is really cool. And honestly, that's actually a really good segue into what you preached about this weekend, because we were talking about Hannah, which did exactly that. She had asked the Lord for a child, and then said, if you give me this child, I'm going to commit him to you. And then she did, which is like a super cool illustration of that kind of dedication moment. What did you just kind of stand out from you this weekend with Hannah that I don't know, maybe you didn't get to highlight?
Well, anytime you bring up pain, you could probably spend a lot of time just unpacking pain in general. And the moment that tension comes out of the text, you can sense the room on the hook, and I've got some pain in my life. And so that's the one thing that you kind of navigate from a pulpit side of things, where to overdo the pain conversation in the sermon can really come with a heaviness that almost leaves everyone walking away just zapped. Like, oh my goodness, like life is terrible. And so trying to get into the pain conversation in a productive way, because a lot of people are carrying around really significant pain, trauma, abuse, things that have happened in their life, all the ways they've been mistreated, and the unfortunate times that life has just kind of unraveled on them, whether it was anchored in something they did or whether it was just the circumstances around them, and you can feel that in the room. The thing that I would hope people take away is that just overarching idea that we're all going to encounter pain. But how you manage it is going to determine how your life is going to unfold. And pain is maybe one way to say it, it's a terrible compass, but it is a good classroom. You know, if you are taking your cues from pain, and that's the thing that's guiding and directing your life, you're going to find yourself moving towards isolation because you're going to want to avoid pain. You're going to find yourself developing a very cynical view of people in the world. You're going to develop a very hardened and calloused heart if pain is leading you. But if you can, again, what we said this weekend, really open your hands and your heart and allow it to maybe teach you some things. And just because something, I would say this, a lot of what we experience in life, we try to reconcile with, you know, our understanding of sovereignty. Okay, right. God, you're in control. You set things into motion before the foundations of the earth. How much of this are you behind? And I would say that a lot of the wickedness, evil, sinful things in the world, God's not, the one originating and causing those things. However, just because something is not from God doesn't mean it can't be used for God. And God can use your pain in a way that strengthens you, equips you, grafts a greater wisdom into your life. And hopefully that's something that people would take away. But I would say I would love to have more of those conversations, probably one-on-one over coffee with people, just say, hey, like, how are you going to apply this? And what are you holding on to that you really need to release it to the Lord?
Do you feel like because of the sovereignty conversation, that is why we witness a lot of people struggle with honesty with the Lord in their prayers? I know that, like, I have definitely been in, I would say, long waiting seasons or long suffering seasons. And sometimes when you are in that, it's almost difficult to be honest because you don't want to be doubtful. And I think you want to place faith and you want to place hope and you believe that he is good, but it doesn't feel very good. Do you feel like because of the sovereignty conversation, you talked a little bit about prayer this weekend, that is one of the hard balances in prayer life, in believing for something and wanting for something, but also being like, it's okay, God, if you don't give it to me and I'm grateful anyway. Like that tension and that struggle, how would you encourage somebody in that, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, prayer, it's not informing God, it's involving him, right? So it's not saying, hey, here's the details, what do you think? It's really opening the door and saying, God, you're welcome, however you see fit to work in my life. I would say to that question, it's tied to this assumption that prayer is an exam, that we're being evaluated on, did I hit the dials? Did I say it correctly? Did I ask with accuracy according to Scripture and theology? And none of that's important. It's really learning to find peace in the fact that you can go to God with your doubts, with your heartbreaks. I mean, you read through David's Psalms. He is at times so honest with God, even with his frustrations.
Right.
And what you don't find is God, casting him aside and doing away with him. No, you find God saying, this is a man after my own heart. He's leaning in. And so I do find that even from the Roman study into now, I still feel this responsibility to press on the performance-based assumptions that, hey, this is a result. God's going to answer my prayer based on how I said it. It's not in the Bible.
I think you've said before, like when we're talking about faith, we always think about the size of our faith, and you get that in your head. Like if you have the faith the size of a mustard seed, you can move a mountain. And people like get in that and they're like, okay, let me just believe. Let me just come on, and you like try to work up this size of faith. And I think that's always been, confusing. And I love the statement that you had brought to us, where it's not about the magnitude of your faith, it's about the duration of your faith. Faith is a measurement of time, not a measurement of passion or something like that. And I think we all kind of relate it to a passion of man, I just have to believe harder. I have to believe bigger. I have to believe more. I have to really believe it. And, to your point, like, there are times in your lives where you're just like, well, that's not being honest, though. Like, I am, like, trying to present, and, God knows your heart, but you're trying to present this, like, this confidence that you don't actually have.
Yeah.
And I think Hannah's a great story, because it is like a year over year sort of thing. It's not I just came and today I hit the right buttons and all that stuff, and God, the magical genie came out and gave me what I asked for. It's like, well, I continued to believe. And when the time was right, when I was ready, and I didn't know, how I needed to be prepared. I didn't know the soil that needed to be cultivated in me for me to get what I was asking for. And yeah, Hannah definitely, she goes through all that time, and then God answers her prayer. And then I'm like shocked, because, she makes this commitment, and as soon as God answers her prayer, she gives it away.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. And then that son is obviously Samuel, who is the kingmaker.
Yeah.
He appoints Saul. He appoints David. He is a remarkable figure in Scripture. And you have to ask the question, would Hannah had mothered Samuel the way she did had she not experienced the things she experienced? Yeah. And I think it was the scorning of Peninnah. It was the internal competition within the home. It was the societal pressure and the humiliation that came with being barren. And it was the long seasons of prayer and believing and hoping and wanting that cultivated a perspective on the preciousness of, like, oh my goodness, God, if you, I got to a point where I'm fully surrendered to whatever you want to do here. And I just wonder if she would have taken a very different approach in her mothering had she not gone through such a painful journey. And so, God does somehow develop us through the journey that we take in our faith. And, no illustration is perfect. This one will certainly break down at some point, but food is just always better out of the oven than out of the microwave. And sometimes it just takes time for God to do his best work in your life and for you to grow into the things that he's going to entrust you with. Patience is not the ability to wait. It's how you act while you're waiting. And God will graft some of those things into your life through the things that you're enduring. And so she passed the test for sure.
Well, and even at the point, the thing that I appreciate about Hannah too, in her prayer, well, one, her prayer was so not even audacious, but the way that she was acting was, she was accused of being drunk because it was so exaggerated, or what we can imagine. Which one I always appreciate, someone who's just like, I'm going to be authentically, if I am as desperate and vulnerable for the Lord to hear me, then it's going to take all that I have. I'm going to give all that I have, but she's also so honest. And even in her prayer says, like, Lord, if you have not forgotten me. And I just think of people in that, in pain, in waiting, that is the feeling. Like, and she had been praying. She'd probably been hearing from him in some kind of capacity, so she knows he's listening. That's what keeps us going. But she at some point has wrestled with that forgottenness. What would you just say to someone who is sitting in that, like, I feel forgotten by God, but I also still believe that what he says is to be true? How do we find that tension of even encouragement to somebody? Because he also could have not given her a child, and that disappointment, unanswered prayer, and feeling of forgottenness doesn't mean that he ever does forget you. It just means it's not necessarily the way that you wished it for.
Yeah, one, you have to consider all the times where God has shown up in your life, and as a reminder of like, okay, he's still with me. There's been other times in my life where I felt overlooked, as if God took his eye off of me, and then he once more showed up and did something. So the longer you spend in relationship with God, you do grow in confidence of like, no, he's still with me. He's just frustrating at times with how he chooses to intervene.
God, you're so frustrating.
Yeah.
Like,
I do think
that's not a prayer. That
My
you're
favorite was you're not. He's not on. Like, Lord, you're never early.
Yeah.
You're only on time. It's so frustrating. And his on time in our category is usually very late.
Yeah, I tell my wife that all the time. I'm always on time.
Right.
It's just maybe not your time.
I sometimes wonder, and I'll say a statement, and I will even mid-statement be wrestling with
Right.
my own thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will think to myself, well, most time when we notice someone being early, it's when we're early and we got to see them arrive. It's like, oh, you're here 10 minutes early.
That's good.
But sometimes I wonder if it's like, no, God was just so early we didn't see his arrival. And he's been present and active the entire time. I would think of, let's see, like maybe an Esther.
Yeah.
She has this journey into this Persian palace, and she's, becoming this wife of the king and taking on influence. And then there comes a crisis.
Right.
And she's in position. And it's like, oh, before the crisis ever happened, God put you in position. Like he
Right.
had you there early.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'm like, even in my own thought process, I'm like, I'm looking for him to show up. And chances are he just showed up before me, and I didn't realize he's already here and active.
You're looking for him to show up, but he's waiting for you to catch up.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great way
good.
of saying it. And, it's hard when you come to something like this to want to add to the text.
Yeah.
And you kind of really have to try to stay disciplined and work with what Scripture gives you. And what it gives us is a woman who had a very intense, very raw, vulnerable, transparent, and consistent prayer life. And I would just say, for the person who feels forgotten and is going through those struggles, I would copy what Hannah did in terms of just staying rooted and devoted to the things that God gives us to make a difference the most in our life, prayer being obviously a top tier one. But the fact that she's accused of being drunk, this goes back to what we just talked about in terms of performing in our prayer. And here a priest, so come on, like pastors get it wrong.
Yeah.
A priest is looking at her and be like, oh my goodness, you should not be acting like that. And he gets it wrong. He assumes poorly of her. But think of how she must have been praying for someone
Right.
to think, oh, you are drunk.
Yeah.
And so whatever that looked like, clearly it was her wearing her heart on her sleeve and just
Yeah.
saying, God, I am. And I mean, the language she uses, what she say, I prayed out of my great anguish. I'm
Yeah.
weeping
Yeah.
bitterly. So many people were taught at a young age to muzzle their emotions.
Sure.
That I would not be surprised that if you were to do a poll and say, how many of you can recall a time where you wept bitterly?
Yeah.
And I think there would even be probably a large group of men, probably even specifically, who would hear that and think that sounds awkward, weak,
Yeah.
but to not cry is not to say you're stronger than others,
Right.
and I just believe that all of us carry painful experiences in life, and God gave us the wiring to express the emotion of sorrow and sadness and grief and to weep. and to anguish. And sometimes you have to process that out, really, to kind of get it out of you. That's, we talked about, pouring out and how, that creates the space for God to pour in. That really a transparent and vulnerable approach to prayer increases the capacity in your heart and soul for God to do more, because right now you're just being over-informed by the wrong things.
Yeah. There's a couple times in the Bible, like, because I'm definitely that person, like, you see that, like, kind of expressive, like, that kind of gets me, like, a little bit weirded out sometimes. I'm just like, okay, I mean, that's a little much. But you do see, like, here in the Bible, David, and kind of the same reactions from people, where David is, like, dancing through the streets and he's being very expressive, and his wife is like, oh my gosh, like, bro, like, that's a little bit much. And so he's, like, looked down on because of the expressiveness, and his was joy, this was pain. And then the other one, I think, is, Jesus. They're like, man, he's, like, going out, and what does he do? He, like, parties with sinners and everything, and, like, he's drinking with them is basically what people are thinking, and, like, he's getting drunk. And so you have these expressions of, in some ways, it's God's will. I mean, like, to this authentic expression of faith, or in Jesus' case, of doing God's work in his place, that people from the outside are looking at, and they're like, there's something wrong there. And that knee-jerk judgment that we have on people who are actually authentically expressing themselves. And then, we kind of reward, or we look at people who kind of hold back their emotions as, like, oh man, they're so strong and everything. When in reality, you were talking about unprocessed pain. It's like, are we avoiding processing our pain? And as part of that stoic, like, I've got to put a brave face onto the world. And so I'm not even going to go there, because if I process my pain, then there might be an expression that people would look down on.
Yeah. Well, the disciples got accused of the same thing. They come out of the upper room and they're speaking in tongues.
Oh, right.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, they're drunk.
Yeah.
And so there is that pattern of people mislabeling what they see. I came out of a very charismatic upbringing and denomination, which I will forever be super grateful for. It definitely put me in positions to experience the power of God in ways I'm like, you just can't deny that. However, there were so many moments of kind of bizarre, antics that seemed more performance-based at times, or maybe even manipulative, that really created a struggle for me. And this is where I think to always view things in categories and boxes just doesn't work. It's too limited, and it misrepresents all of us. I tend to think or find it more helpful to just view everything on a spectrum.
Sure.
And so in a conversation like this, you have a spectrum of people who are going to listen to what we're saying. And for some, they're on this end of the spectrum where they've never expressed the slightest hint of authenticity in their faith. They're buttoned up, they're stoic, they say the right things, and they say the bare minimum. And it's like, no, you should move more towards a greater expression of your faith and being more genuine in those moments with God. And then there's the person who is like, oh, I'm all for the drunk appearing prayers. Like, I'll be out there acting crazy all the time. And to that person, I would just say, well, notice that this moment only happens once for Hannah.
Yes.
Notice that it only happened once in the lives of the disciples.
Right.
So I think sometimes it becomes like a routine of like, no, I'm always, and I'm like, well, I don't know if that's really how it should be.
Yeah.
I think there come moments, and really what makes the moment powerful is the uniqueness of the moment.
Yeah.
It's like, no, there was a time out of my great anguish, I wept bitterly.
Yeah.
Now, if you are in that headspace and that emotional space every single day, every single week, well, now it's becoming more of a matter of health. And I think you're maybe missing really kind of some of the point. And so that person finds himself on this side, and they kind of need to maybe move down the spectrum while this person needs to move up. I definitely think pouring yourself out to the Lord is critical. Yet, as a pastor of Northview, I would personally, if people started really disrupting and distracting in services in very bizarre ways that would, create a tension with, okay, where do we find this in Scripture, and how do we teach this productively across all of our campuses now that you've chosen to have this moment? I would probably, most likely I would address those things on the spot, and that would be difficult, but there is an order that God wants to see in and through his church. But this is happening in her own personal prayer life.
Yes.
For the disciples, it was really something that was birthed in an upper room in a small gathering, that as they came out, people were speculating. But I don't think it should be taken as an endorsement of like, hey, next week in church, what we want to do is we just want to see everyone wailing in their seats. It's like, no, we want to see people on their knees before the Lord, truly owning and investing in a personal relationship with God, and understanding where things are really best lived out in those private faithfulness moments, and where things are practiced in a corporate context and setting. And that's a tension, and every church kind of finds where they land. But
you can get comfortable in a lot of different places.
Oh,
People who are, more reserved and everything can get comfortable there and not be open to an experience. They get comfortable. They want to get very much in their heads and let's learn everything. Let's get all the information. And that is what Christianity is like, it's a book of information. So I learn all that, and now I know stuff. And they never have an experience with God. And then there's other people that maybe come in on the other side, and they're just all about the experience. And you have an authentic experience, but then you start trying to recreate the experience. And you're like, okay, man, if I could just have that again. And that's when I think sometimes you see it feeling a little fraudulent, is like, because they're like trying to recreate something that did actually happen. And you can become comfortable in one of those areas, and just knowing, like you said, that this only happened once in Hannah's life that we know of. And just knowing God works in a lot of different ways. Sometimes he wants you to sit, and he wants you to, maybe learn and grow. I love listening to apologetic stuff. Like, that's good. But then there's other times where you really do need to have an experience, maybe that touches your emotions that you haven't allowed it to. And for different people, you just kind of want to stay in your comfort zone with God. You want to, I love the Chronicles of Narnia, where they just talk about, Aslan. He's not a tame lion. And God's not a tame God. He's not just one thing to us, but boy, do we want to put him in a box.
I remember reading that to my kids, and there's a statement, I believe it's Lucy in the story, where she's standing next to Aslan, and she says, or she thinks, he's dangerous, but he's good. And it's like, man, that's just like C.S. Lewis would, put it that simple and clear. But like in holy, righteous, almighty, powerful God, like there's a danger in that, you know.
Shout out to The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the movie and the book. Now we were talking about movies. So you have seen The Lion, the Witch?
And I
have you read the book
them.
too?
No.
Oh, okay.
I'll read the book next.
I don't believe you because you didn't watch Star Wars this week when we.
The full I had a week turnaround time. I missed my due date.
Oh, such a good movie, such a good book.
In my office, on the shelf, I have two books next to each other. One is the Chronicles of Narnia.
Yeah.
And then right behind it, and I'm not going to give press to the book, but most people would maybe even be a little disappointed if they were to look at my bookshelf, because I read a ton of unfriendly sources.
Oh, sure.
You know, I don't care to only shop at Christian bookstores where it's like, hey, I know this guy and he comes out of this theological camp and he aligns with me,
He's
and
safe.
he's just going to reinforce everything I believe. I really try to immerse myself in like, hey, what is the conversation at large? What is the criticism of our faith? And so I have always found myself kind of attuned to just reading books from critics. And there's this book right behind the Chronicles of Narnia that, in my experience, is the most scathing, like just tear apart the Christian faith book. And I got it sitting there right next to the Chronicles of Narnia because I just love it, because C.S. Lewis was so good at addressing skeptics and critics, and he did it in such a gentle, playful, and creative way.
Yeah.
And when I'm writing my messages, it's kind of just that like standard reminder of your response to a harsh world doesn't have to be abrasive, and you can figure out how to develop productive language that gets your point across in a way that is insightful and even maybe winsome, you know, where a critic puts their fist down and, you know, sits at the table with you. But I don't know where we got going on all that, but to just say C.S. Lewis is awesome.
Probably.
Comfort zone consistency.
Yeah,
all the
comfort zone.
things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, to tie the bow on your thought, it just makes me think of like the Lord, especially for those that I got to talk to a lot of people in the lobby about just how the prayer life conversation came up in this, and just that the Lord is praying more, or the Lord is waiting more for your consistency than for your comfort zone, and just that inconsistency doesn't look like you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Consistency is just continuing to do the same thing in the right direction, and so sometimes that looks like Hannah crying out. But you also witness, and this is something I want to touch on before we're done because I think it's so important. Hannah was consistent enough in her desire that her husband noticed it. And if you read it, he gives us, you talked about how your older brother gave you the what not to do. Yeah. Her husband in this gives you the what not to do, because essentially in Hannah's,
I feel like he has a really good response.
it is a horrible response. Hannah pretty much is, you know, upset, and also the other wife was horrible to her, to be fair. So she's upset, and the husband's response essentially is like, am I not enough for you to fill this desire of your heart for a son? And literally what not to do is that. But it reminds me that people just don't know how to handle people who are in deep grief. I think, you know, infertility is a big one. People don't exactly know how to navigate that, or you have people who are trying to sit with people who are like, okay, you're struggling with cancer diagnosis, you're struggling things like long seasons. How can we be like healthier spiritual support to people going through that and not say something
well, if you think of
dumb.
love languages, and let's see if I can flesh this out, hopefully this makes sense, but there's the 5 love languages: words of affirmation, acts of service, quality time, physical touch, gifts. And what is interesting to me is most people communicate through their preferred love language. Yeah. So for the person who wants to receive gifts, they're just buying everybody gifts because they're communicating out of their love language. Yeah. And sometimes you can tell the way a person is wired and how to best connect with them by how they're trying to connect with you. And I think sometimes when we're receiving feedback in Hannah's story, Elkanah, hey, am I not enough? I think there is probably an instinct in all of us to get annoyed or offended by like, wait a second, don't be so dismissive. Right. But similar to the life language dynamic, I find that most people share the advice they are currently trying to embrace themselves.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And, you know, Elkanah, scripture tells us, deeply cared about Hannah. In fact, preferred Hannah over Penina, which there's a whole dynamic there. However, you wonder in his own personal life, in a culture and society where everyone would have dismissed and degraded a Hannah, if the thing that he kept telling himself was, but she's enough. And even if she can't produce me a child, she's enough, she's enough, she's enough. And then he gets into a conversation and he says, am I not enough?
Right.
He gives the advice to her that chance to, and I'm speculating. So again, hold this loosely.
Right.
But sometimes we are better off to maybe consider where the feedback is coming from. And to also understand that even if it is a person who is lazy and intentional or unintentionally dismissing your pain, sometimes at least it helps me to think through the fact that, hey, they too are carrying some things.
Yeah. There's some grace that you have to give someone who's going through pain too. Because I think, like, how I kind of interpret that is, like, he's feeling like, man, all she wants is a kid. And he's, like, asking the question kind of authentically, like, man, am I not, like, a part of this? Like, am I not providing for you? Does that not help at all? And so, you know, when somebody is going through pain, you do get very tunnel vision on your pain.
Yeah.
And so people around you can start feeling like, you know, like it's almost an attack against them. As just like, man, I'm being friendly to you. I'm a family member. I'm a loving person, and I'm feeling pushed out by you because of the pain that you're going through. And so being able to, like, give grace kind of back and forth in that situation, because you know, that person who's going through pain, they may not know how that's making you feel.
Yeah.
And that it might be causing hurt to you or something like that.
Well, think about it in the sense of anytime it comes to Mother's Day, we are always intentional to see and to love and care for the aspiring moms who that just hasn't come to pass in their life.
Yeah.
And our hearts break for them. But I found myself this weekend thinking, when I was thinking about Elkanah and just thinking about how the weekend played out, I thought, we don't do the same thing for guys. We don't stand up there on Father's Day and say, hey, some of you, like, have a desire to be a dad, and that just hasn't been in the cards for you in your marriage. And I know so many amazing men, like amazing men, where I think to myself, man, the world would be a better place if there was more of you. And for whatever reason, they have just not been able to have children. And for, you know, there's all kinds of complications that can cause some of those things. But it's just learning to acknowledge other people are going through predicaments and pain and challenges, and trying to see that. And I do think that's a mark of maturity is, can I get past the overwhelming, in my face attention that I give to my own pain? And can I start to sense and detect maybe the pain in other people's lives? And how can I respond to them in a way that I'm possibly hoping others would respond to me? And it's challenging, but Hannah, Elkanah, again, it's a goofy story to be like, hey, 1 Samuel chapter 1, here's the kind of the opening plot to this great hero. And once more, it's like God is going to raise up this mighty man out of a unique situation. And he does it over and over and over again. And so for the person who looks at their situation and thinks, this isn't an ideal situation, or this is too complicated or messy or painful, it's like, well, you're a great candidate then, because it seems like that is God's preferred option. You know, so.
Truthfully. Well, I'm really excited for this coming weekend. We're talking about Queen Esther. She is a G. I love her. So super excited. and just appreciative for this weekend and just talking about the ladies and all the moms out there and everybody who served this weekend and just this conversation. So super grateful for you both and excited
One of
to get
our
into
missions partners, Paul Herkman, is coming
on.
this
Whoop,
week.
whoop.
So,
Super
Jesus
excited.
is look-alike. It's really
Yes.
what if you guys are trying to picture him, that's what he looks like. He's so great.
and he's got a really cool story to share this week too, which I'm excited
Oh
about.
my goodness. In my life, I would say in terms of like a athleticism side of things, probably the most impressive accomplishment
100%.
that I'm closely connected to.
Just wild.
And I don't
So
want to
cool.
I don't want to rob it.
No.
But what he did and why he did it.
Yeah.
All so that he can help the fight of human trafficking
Yeah.
and rescuing women and children. It's just an amazing story. And anytime you have a renegade missionary who can jump into the pulpit and just kind of share is awesome. So be here this weekend. Paul's going to do a bang up job and looking forward to it.
And the true party goers already know the story that he's going to tell
That's true.
because
That's
we
true.
talked about it when it was happening in real time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
excited to see if people can guess. Well, I'm excited to continue the conversation next week, and we'll see you guys all on Sunday or Saturday.
Yes.